This is Batshit Crazy, a podcast dedicated to all things strange and unusual, with your spirit guides Heather and Dylan, who will take you to the other side. Subject matter featured on Batshit Crazy may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to Batshit Crazy. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
How's it going, Dylan?
Man, if it was going any better, I wouldn't know what to do.
You wouldn't know what to do.
No.
Okay. Well, on the autopsy table today, we've got the mother of all demonic possession films, The Exorcist.
Man, if you can watch that movie, even in this day and age, I think it really holds up. If you can watch that and not be disturbed, you're a special kind of person.
Well, first, let's talk about demonic possession in general. Demonic possession is the belief that a foreign spirit, entity, or demon takes control of a person's physical body and eventually their soul.
Well, it sounds like my creditors.
Do you believe demonic possession is possible? Or do you feel that people who claim to have been possessed are suffering from some kind of psychological problem?
Well, I'm no expert, but I think definitely in the past, mental illnesses have been said to be demonic possession. But if I was in the presence of someone speaking an ancient dead language or levitating above their bed or any of that stuff, then yes, maybe that would make me be a believer.
Common symptoms include missing memories, distorted perception, loss of sense of control, and hypersuggestibility. Of course, this also sounds like perhaps you were partying with some fun drugs.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe you had one too many edibles.
Over 488 societies worldwide believe in some form of demonic possession.
Well, see, that's interesting that it's across all races, religions, societies, cultures, time periods. It's always there. It's like vampires.
Well, there is a lot of controversy surrounding the Exorcist film. Many people believe the movie was cursed.
Well, I mean, I don't blame them for thinking that because some really strange things happened during and after the filming of this movie.
Well, let's talk about some of the interesting facts about the movie, Dylan. When The Exorcist was released in 1973, it was the story of a young girl possessed by a demon. And of course, this would surely be controversial. The film was based on the novel by William Blatty, and Blatty wrote the book based on a real-life exorcism. Catholic priests at Georgetown University Hospital conducted the exorcism on a 13-year-old Maryland boy. The real-life event was frightening. The boy managed to pull his restraints loose, cut a priest, and pull a spring out of his mattress.
Oh, so it's like the old-timey cold mattresses?
Yes.
Well, that doesn't sound like something that would be very easy to do.
No, not at all.
With just your fingertips. Now, could you imagine the records on exorcism and the various, I don't know, evidence or whatever you want to call it that the Vatican holds or has in their bowels?
In their bowels?
Yeah, deep down below.
Do you think one day they'll excavate?
No. No, they're never going to come clean.
They're never going to excavate those files and let us take a peek?
Shit, no. They wouldn't even make the pedo priest stop.
No film before had really taken on the topic of demonic possession, and exorcisms were an almost taboo Catholic ritual, which was not openly discussed. In the film, we see Reagan, played by the adorable Linda Blair, who went on to achieve success starring in Roller Boogie. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend. And of course, she was fucking Rick James in the 80s.
She was fucking Rick James?
Yeah, they were like doing the druggists.
Really?
Doing the druggists and fucking, yeah. And her actress mother, Chris, played by Ellen Bernstein, they're living in Washington, D.C., where Chris is working on a film project. Reagan plays with a Ouija board, summoning a spirit she calls Captain Howdy. Afterwards, Chris becomes increasingly worried about her daughter's behavior and physical appearance. Reagan starts behaving strangely, levitating, speaking in tongues, using obscene language, and her mom seeks medical help, but she gets nowhere. Eventually, Chris consults a local priest about an exorcism.
Yeah, I must say, Reagan's appearance went downhill pretty quickly. And another hint that something is wrong is when you walk in your children's bedroom and it's like a meat locker. It's like 30 degrees in there.
You would say that's a sign of demonic possession?
Well, that's a sign that something's not right. I'm not going to go so far as to say demonic possession. But then when they start levitating and, flipping the bed all around and shit and talking crazy, I don't know. What do you call it?
Hormones?
Puberty?
Yeah, that just seems normal for our teenage daughters.
Well, that's true.
The head spinning, the obscene language, all of that. One of the best scenes is when Chris is hosting a dinner party. Reagan crashes the party and tells an astronaut, "You're going to die up there," pointing to the sky. And then she pisses on the floor. It's really a great party trick.
Well, I thought that was a pretty heavy scene, personally, when I first watched the movie. Originally, even rewatching the movie, I thought that was a pretty intense scene.
Then later, Reagan's babysitter, Burke Dennings, mysteriously falls out a window while Reagan is supposedly under heavy sedation. "Help me" is scrawled on her stomach, which is pretty freaky. And now we see that kind of thing all the time in horror movies, but The Exorcist, like before The Exorcist brought something like that to the screen, people had never seen that before. So this was a really groundbreaking horror film.
Well, I think that's one thing that has to be pointed out, like you're doing right now. When The Exorcist came along, it really changed the way that scary possession movies were done, period.
And then, of course, there's the "let Jesus fuck me" cross masturbation scene.
Yes. Well, that's disturbing. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
Well, it's a child for one. So, it must have been pretty tricky to cast a child for this role, knowing the script and knowing what you're going to ask them to do.
Yeah, we'll actually get into a bit about casting in a minute, Dylan. And then, of course, there's my favorite, the edited for TV version. "Your mother sews socks in hell."
She sews socks in hell.
She sews socks in hell.
Oh, man, that's a great edit.
The house is now a famous horror history landmark located at 3600 Prospect Street in Georgetown, section of Washington, D.C., and it's actually Prospect Street Northwest. The famous stairs are east of the house between Prospect and M Street. It's actually located by a gas station.
So that's a bit of movie magic there, right? The stairs are not directly below the window out of the second story of the house.
No, not at all.
Okay.
The staircase is actually a historic landmark, but not for the best reason, because it was part of the movie. It's actually a historic landmark because it was part of the Capitol traction station built at the end of the 19th century. So let's get into some of the interesting facts about the film, Dylan. Jack Nicholson was up for the part of Father Karras before Jason Miller was cast, but the director thought Nicholson was too unholy to play a priest.
So he literally thought people would not be able to picture Jack Nicholson as a priest.
Can you imagine Nicholson as a priest?
I could not imagine Nicholson in that role.
That's pretty terrifying.
So yeah, I think that was a good call.
But if he was a priest, I might convert. The studio wanted Brando to play the priest.
Again, I just don't see it. Do you see that?
No, not really. Friedkin vetoed this, saying it would become a Brando movie and it would derail the whole film he was trying to make.
Well, the fact of the way Brando seemed to be to work around and to work with, I think that's a good call on his part. And he would try to make the priest's role bigger, like the biggest role. And honestly, I think Reagan's performance was the biggest performance in the movie.
I agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah, everything else is secondary.
It would have become a Brando film. Absolutely. Many have said The Exorcist was cursed from the beginning. Strange and tragic events seem to plague the set and actors. The original movie set was destroyed by fire.
It's an unknown fire. I don't think they ever figured out the source of the fire.
No, they did. The house that was supposed to be used for the home caught fire after a pigeon got caught in a circuit box. Now, how random is that?
What's the odds of that?
A pigeon in a circuit box. Now, during the film, actress Ellen Burstyn is thrown by her possessed daughter Reagan, and she actually sustained a pretty serious back injury, which caused her lifelong pain.
Really?
Several actors died shortly after the film wrapped. A total of 9 people associated with the film met their demise. Jack McGowan, an actor, Vasiliki Maleros, another actor, Linda Blair's grandfather passed away, a security guard on set, and a special effects expert. At one point, a real Jesuit priest, Thomas M. King, was brought to the set to bless it.
So the cast and crew were literally unsettled about all the strange things going on around them. You know, I don't know the statistics, but that does seem like quite a bit of death. Not all that much after they wrapped shooting. That seems like a lot of death.
9 people.
Yeah. I mean, really.
Mercedes McCambridge, who was the voice actress for the demon, experienced a horrific tragedy in 1987. Her adult son, John Markle, was 46 years old and living in Little Rock, Arkansas. He worked as an investor for Stevens Incorporated. On November 13th of 1987, he was placed on a medical leave from his company. He drugged his wife and 2 daughters. He then put on a Halloween mask and shot his wife and daughters.
Well, that sounds very not ordinary.
He then turned the gun on himself. Oh, and I should mention, he was playing Nightmare on Elm Street on the family's VCR while he stalked his wife and daughters and killed them, wearing a Halloween mask.
Oh my goodness. It's like he's mashing up 2 or 3 movies into one.
It turns out he's being investigated for embezzlement, including some of his mother's money. He chose to end it all rather than take the prison time he was sure to get.
Well, yeah, but even if you killed your family and took your own life, that's bad. That's bad enough. But the whole mask and stalking his family around the house while another horror movie is playing on the TV, that just seems like a significant mental illness.
And he's drugged his wife and children, so they're probably not 100% with it. And they're hearing this horror movie playing in the background, and then here's Dad wearing a Halloween mask.
Oh my God.
Like coming for them? Like, what the fuck?
I feel like that could be a horror movie.
Yeah. Write that down.
Yeah. Nobody steal that, please.
One of the craziest stories from the film is about an actor named Paul Bateson. He appeared in the film as a radiologist who scans Reagan's character, checking her brain, make sure she's doesn't have a tumor.
So they're trying to figure out what's wrong with her in the movie?
Yeah, and the director wanted the scene to be super realistic, so he hired a real-life radiology assistant for this role. And it happened to be this guy, Paul Bateson. Well, in the late 1970s, New York City was terrorized by a series of brutal murders targeting gay men. Bodies were being found in the Hudson River, chopped up, mutilated, and mostly tied up in garbage bags. Most of the bodies were not able to be identified except for some clothing items and tattoos. In March 1979, Bateson was arrested for murdering a film critic who worked for the Village Voice, a guy named Addison Verrill. Now, according to Bateson, he picked him up at a gay bar in Greenwich Village, and the pair went back to Verrill's apartment for a sexual tryst. Bateson said he bashed Verrill's skull in with a skillet, then stabbed him multiple times. He never gave a reason why he committed the murders. And while incarcerated, he bragged about other murders and said he had chopped up gay men just for fun and then dumped their bodies in the Hudson River.
What the hell? I mean, who does that?
Apparently Paul Bateson.
Damn, Paul.
Yeah, so the actor became a serial killer.
Well, I think that if you think you're having a cursed production, being connected to someone, having someone on set who is a real-life serial killer, as it turns out, it can't be a good thing.
No.
Oh, my goodness.
Throughout the film, we see subliminal shots of a white-faced demon, and those are actually test makeup shots of Reagan for her possessed appearance.
Oh, so they just kind of cut them in there? It's just like flashes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ellen Burstyn refused to say the line, "I believe in the devil," and it was edited out of the script.
Oh. No, she wasn't even going to do that. She wasn't even going to play around with that, huh?
Writer William Peter Blatty won $10,000 on You Bet Your Life, which was the Groucho Marx game show, and he actually took that money to work on the novel, which ultimately became The Exorcist.
Wow. What's the odds?
The Exorcist is also the first horror movie to be nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah, it was groundbreaking. I think it changed many things in film period in some aspects, and definitely in horror, that, people tried to copy it and one-up it many years after. Even to this day, in my mind, if I watch a movie about possession, I hold it up to The Exorcist. I mean, honestly, I don't think it gets much better.
When Friedkin was casting the film, I mean, he had to find, as you mentioned, Dylan, a child who would be able to handle the subject matter appropriately. And he got Linda Blair in the office and asked her, have you read the script? And she's like, yes. And she had read the book, so she knew what it was about. And then he asked her, so do you know what masturbation is? Which is an awkward question to have to ask a child, right? But she was like, yeah, it's like jerking off, right? And started laughing. And that's how he kind of knew that, like, she was just the kind of cute, coy girl to cast in the film.
So he knew you had the right one.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then when it came to casting the Ellen Burstyn character, he went through, like, a ton of actresses, and no one wanted to be in the film.
So once they had their meeting and they kind of exchanged information about what was actually going on with the project, they just didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, there were some people who had, like, some casting, other film commitments, like other casting issues they couldn't coordinate with this film project. But a lot of actresses just flat out turned the movie down.
Well, I could imagine that. It was back in the day, and, things were a lot more reserved, really.
I believe Anne Bancroft, she was in talks to possibly star in the film. As the Chris character, that she had a prior film commitment. But it's pretty interesting, the casting experience. Stacy Keach at one point signed on to play Father Carreras, and then that fell to the wayside.
No.
Yeah.
Not Stacy Keach.
Yeah.
Why that wouldn't work either.
Shirley MacLaine was suggested for the part of Chris, but Friedkin hesitated to cast her because she had been in another possession film called The Possession of Joel Delaney about 2 years before. And so he didn't want to cast her in this film.
Well, yeah, I've never seen that movie, but I think that's a good call.
Audrey Hepburn was first approached to play the part of Chris, and she was willing to take the role, but only if they would be willing to shoot the entire film in Rome, because she had just moved there with her new husband. And that would raise the cost of the movie considerably.
Well, yeah. I mean, now you're shooting out of the country and all that
Language
mess.
barriers. I mean, there's a lot of problems with that. And like I said, Anne Bancroft, she was willing, but she had gotten pregnant. She had another film coming up. They thought about Jane Fonda, but she turned it down and said the film was a piece of capitalist rip-off bullshit.
Oh, Jane was on one back then, right? The whole Vietnam War
was.
and all that. Well, it was what? So you're saying you don't want to be in any movies? Because I think all movies are made to make money, and I guess you could call it capitalist. Yeah, I think Joan was just, Jane Fonda was full of herself back then.
Well, she was, yeah. That's a good way to put it, Dylan. Then she started doing aerobics and apparently chilled out a little bit.
Yeah, and she didn't mind generating money off that capitalist system at that point, right?
When Father Marin starts the exorcism, he asks Chris if Reagan has a middle name. Middle names came from the Middle Ages when Catholics started giving their children several names because they thought it was going to protect their kids from Satan. If Satan found out the child's real name, he could control their soul easier.
Oh, okay. So you have the name you go by, and then you have the name that not everybody would know, let alone Satan.
Exactly.
Nice.
So I thought that was kind of interesting, especially when he asks, does Reagan have a middle name? Because it ties into this belief in the Catholic Church that you had to give your kid more than one name.
Wow.
To confuse the devil.
Yeah, because, I mean, he's a supernatural being known as the devil. There's no way he can know your middle name.
No.
Unless he hears somebody call it out.
Get behind my birth certificate, devil.
That's right.
The puke scene is actually pea soup, but it's not Campbell's soup. It's Anderson's brand because it had a better effect.
So you reckon the Andersons just had a better look or
Yes.
thicker or something?
Yeah, it was like more chunky.
Oh. Yeah, I never ate pea soup before, but I certainly could never eat it after having watched that scene.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Man, I love pea soup.
Really?
You're not a fan?
No.
We should actually recreate The Exorcist, and I'll just puke up some pea soup in the kitchen, and it'll be fun.
Oh, yeah, that'll make me be able to eat pea soup easier.
Oh, my gosh, that would be maybe that's what I'll be for Halloween.
You're going to be Reagan?
And just puke pea soup at people.
Okay.
Yeah, just spit it out at everybody.
All right.
So let's talk a bit about the demon that's seen but not named in the film. It's Pazuzu, an Assyrian and Babylonian mythological demon that brings famine during dry seasons and brings locusts in rainy seasons. King of the demons of wind. Pazuzu was also the name taken by the satanic killer in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, who drank blood, sacrificed animals, and held orgies in his house, all for shock value in the Bible Belt. You may know this story because Viceland did a documentary called The Devil You May Know.
Ooh, wow.
He, along with his two fiancées, Crystal Matlock and Amber Birch, murdered two men, Tommy Welch and Josh Wetzler. Both of these men disappeared in 2009, and they were found in Pazuzu's backyard.
Well, yeah, so from henceforth, I shall be known as Pazuzu.
Okay.
And I want to, I'm going to get a couple of extra wives. You're my one wife. I'm getting more wives. And we're going to, and then we're going to find people, we're going to possess them with our magical powers bestowed upon us by the devil.
That doesn't sound fun. It sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but just think about it. You got these vessels out there doing your bidding.
Nah, I'm not really interested in that.
Okay.
But I do feel like the film should have elaborated a bit more about Pazuzu, about this demon, the background, the mythology surrounding the demon in the film, so we could have a better understanding.
I do think that while it is a very scary movie, it's gross, all that, disturbing, for sure. I'm sure, I think that's why it made such a big splash for when it came out, how it changed everything in horror and such. But yes, that's one deficit the movie had. They could have explained that, maybe had a little stronger connection, maybe have the priest come in contact with the statue directly, or I don't know, or Reagan or her mom somehow. Maybe it's a prop on the movie she's working on. I don't know. I need a little stronger connection to the statue and the demon.
Because there is a scene where they're on like an archaeological dig. They find this statue. I suppose that's supposed to be Pazuzu. I believe there is a scene he's the king of the wind or whatever, the king of demons of wind or whatever. And I feel like there is a scene where it shows the statue and like the wind is blowing rather erratically.
Right.
But like, if you don't know that, how are you supposed to know that?
It's Zachary.
I don't know if the film was actually possessed, but it does seem like there is a lot of strange circumstances surrounding the making of the film, the deaths, and we have a serial killer, and then Mercedes McCambridge's son did some psycho Halloween murder or suicide. I mean, I don't know. It's a bit much.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack. You got the weird happenstance of the fire. I mean, how often does a pigeon get in a fuse box, cause a fire? You got a serial killer who's worked on set. You got another man who went on to murder his family and then kill himself in a very strange way. And then all the other deaths connected to it. I mean, I don't know what to say. So if any film has seemed cursed, this one certainly does.
Definitely. So I thought we should talk about it today on Batshit Crazy.
Oh my God.
Now it's time to wrap things up, Dylan.
Yes.
So you can start your Pazuzu cult.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
All right. If you'd like to join Dylan's Pazuzu cult, feel free to reach out. Let him know.
Yes, and we'll be back next week with something strange and weird.